Hi, I'm Kent. In my last several videos, I've been making up some test tiles trying to find some additions for my slip. I have many options now, and I'm going to pull the trigger and mix up 2 batches of a couple of them. Let's go ahead and mix up some slip with these additions and slip cast some new pots. I've settled on these 2 test tiles. So this test tile here I was looking at adding just iron oxide, and this one has rutile in it, getting a little bit more of a speckled effect and darker brown. And this one I was going for a gray test tile, so it has a little bit of cobalt carbonate in it along with iron oxide. These are actually darker than the ones I was leaning to in my previous videos. I figured I might as well go bold, and if I wanted to, I could dial it back. This is just the clay body, and there's going to be glaze and other things on top of it. So let's go ahead and mix these 2 up. I have a couple of 2-gallon buckets here, and these have 10 kilograms of wet slip in it each. How about that for mixing imperial and metric units? So I did a little bit of math here, and I screwed up some math as well. I caught myself. This test tile here, I wrote down on the bottom, has 4% by dry weight of clay iron oxide and 4% rutile. So I have 10 kilograms of wet slip in here. That's about 7 kilograms of clay. 4% of the 7 is 280 grams. So for this one here, I'm going to need 280 grams of iron oxide and 280 grams of rutile to get this effect. For this one over here, it's slightly different. The total addition is 4%, so I need to get a total of 280 grams added into it. But this one here, I picked the 0.75 to 9.25 ratio. So that works out to 21 grams of the cobalt carbonate that I need and 259 grams of the iron oxide. That together equals the same 280 grams, so it's a 4% addition. So let me put up my scale and we'll go ahead and add these into the slip. I'm going to start with the cobalt carbonate, and I need 21 grams. All right, 20.97, we'll call that good enough. And all that goes in here. Now we need 259 grams of iron oxide. And I forgot my gloves, so I'm going to put that on. All right, we need 259, we have 260. I think that's within the margin of error. And same thing, all of that goes into here. So I'm running out of iron oxide, so I don't have enough for this batch here. So I'm going to take some slip back out so I can make sure I have enough. I just took 2.5 kilograms of slip out of this one, so now I have 7.5 kilograms. That means I need 210 grams of iron oxide to get to 4%, which is basically just what I have left. So measure that out, and we will put it in. All right, here's the 10 kilograms that has the cobalt in it, and here's one with just iron oxide. I recently got a different mixing attachment for my drill. I found online that attachment that sliced through the slip as opposed to pushed it out of the side was better. So one thing that's going to be different about these relative to the small test I'm doing is because I'm using my drill, I can mix this way better than before. I'm guessing some of the speckles might disappear. All right, and the same amount, 210 grams of the rutile, so that's also 4%. All right, I think this one's pretty good for now. I'll probably want to mix it again before I use it. I want to minimize cross-contamination of the slip, so I've got some clean water here. Let's see if we can knock off the bulk. And now for this one. My slip has had plenty of time to fully hydrate now, and I've mixed it up again. Let's go ahead and cast a few pots. So first up is the iron and rutile. We'll put over here. And then the iron and the cobalt we'll put in this one. These have sat long enough. Let's dump them out. And I've got a container here of various iron oxide slips, so I'm going to put all the trimmings into here. At this point, these are basically impossible to tell apart, so I'm going to keep them separate. However, once they're fired, they should be much more obvious. And I think they're ready to pop out. Here's the iron with the rutile. Here are the pots out of the bisque fire. I didn't get any footage of them when they were bone dry, but they were pretty unremarkable, and actually they looked very much the same to each other. Now that they've been bisque fired, we're starting to see some of the color differences. So here is the one with the cobalt in them, and here's the one with the rutile, and then both have the iron oxide as the base. These will need a little bit of cleanup. Some of these are fired upside down, so they have a little bit of the kiln shelf wash on them. While I'm cleaning them up, I'll go ahead and do a quick wet sand to pull off any roughness. I'll do that off camera, and then next up will be glaze. These have been sitting on my shelf for a while. I've been debating what glazes to put on. I finally decided. So I picked out 4 glazes. I don't have enough space to actually get them all in frame, but I have a gloss glaze, I have a matte glaze, I have a white glaze, and the last glaze I have is a cobalt glaze. So I'm going to go ahead and put those all on. All right, all glazed. I'll let these dry, I'll touch up the glaze a little bit, then glaze firing. I had a successful cone 6 glaze firing, and the pots are now done. So here they all are. There are definitely some surprises here. So first surprise is all of the pots turned out relatively brown. So if we look at just the raw clay on the bottom, there are some subtle differences. This one's a little bit more red and this one's a little bit more gray. But compared to my original test tiles, there's a huge difference here. This is mystery number 1. I'm not too sure why this happened. Future Kent here. I've been editing the raw footage and I went back and checked a few things to see if what could go wrong. One of the things I was worried about was messing up the numbers for my slip additions. I went back and checked and my iron additions and the cobalt additions seem spot on. It is possible that I mismeasured the total amount of slip that I was adding it to, but I don't think so. I think that was also okay. So I don't think it was a measurement error. The slip was sitting around for a while before I got to use it. So one potential difference is these hydrated more. Another's maybe things settled, I didn't get it mixed up, or the opposite. Since I was actually able to use my drill to mix all these up, maybe I mixed these up way better than I was able to do with the test tiles. I'll likely need to mix up a new batch of slip to figure out what's going on. However, I'm out of all the oxide, so that will have to wait to the future. Next up are the glazes. So this here is a gloss glaze. The one here on the pot with the cobalt in it did not turn out well. It's got this crazy cratered surface to it. That's not supposed to happen. It's supposed to be much more smooth. This is still a very new glaze for me and I have not used it much, but definitely in this pot it did not turn out as expected. Here's the matte glaze. The cobalt one has these weird blisters. I also had problems on the inside of the pot where the glaze didn't adhere. Here's the same glaze on my normal clay body, and it has a very similar surface finish and texture. So I need to investigate this glaze. Next up is the glaze with titanium. Here I've got some pinholing on the rutile pot, at least on one side of it. The same is true for this pot as well. The insides actually look pretty good on this one. And finally are the pots that I glazed with my cobalt glaze. I think the outside of these turned out pretty well. For comparison, here is the exact same glaze on a test tile. This glaze has a lot of titanium in it. Got this really cool floating effect. I also had some thoughts about my glaze application. In thinking about this a little bit more, I realized that all these glazes have some problems I think come down to my application. One thing I did was I glazed the inside of the pots and then pretty much right away glazed the outside of the pots. I think that's a mistake. I think I need to let the pot dry out more between the glaze applications. If I do the inside first, the pot's dry and it sucks in all the water from the glaze. However, the bisqueware at that point is a little bit damp. If I then go and apply the glaze to the outside right away, the bisqueware can't suck in as much water. That means that the glaze isn't going on as thick and it isn't adhering as well. That's one thing I want to try in general differently for all of these. The other thing I realized is I think my bisque firing was a little bit too hot this time. My kiln had been overfiring slightly, and recently I've retuned everything, so I think it'll be better in the future, but it's possible these pots vitrified more, and with them being more vitrified, they had less of an ability to suck up the glaze and have it adhere. I think those two factors are at play here with the glaze application on these pots. I totally did not expect my clay body to react that way. But that was the point of these tests, to figure out exactly what's going on. And sometimes things don't turn out exactly as expected. I'm sure this is a topic I will revisit in the future. If you have any questions or comments, let me know. Thanks.